At the bachelor party, Ethan Foster kissed Lena Parker, his so-called female best friend, through a layer of plastic wrap. The kiss lingered as if he couldn't bear to let go, right in front of me. Everyone around us burst out laughing and teasing. "Come on, Ethan. You're getting married tomorrow. Aren't you afraid your fiancé's gonna be mad?" Lena Parker smiled smugly, her eyes full of provocation. "Come on, Anna Boyd, Ethan and I are just friends. It's just a game. Don't be so petty." I slapped her hand away and looked straight at Ethan, demanding an explanation. His face turned dark like the bottom of a pot as he snapped. "It was just a kiss through plastic wrap. What's the big deal?" I let out a cold laugh. "Oh, so a kiss through plastic wrap doesn't count as a kiss? Then I guess wearing a condom means it doesn't count as sleeping together, right?" Ethan's expression hardened, his gaze turning cold. "Anna, if you're really this jealous, maybe we should postpone the wedding tomorrow." Seeing the confident look in his eyes, like he was certain I'd back down, I lowered my gaze and nodded obediently. He smiled smugly, completely ignoring my dignity, and went back to joking around with Lena Parker. I turned away, pulled out my phone, and called the man who used to be my arranged fiancé. "Hey," I said calmly. "Are you free tomorrow? Let's get married." The night before the wedding, Ethan's close friends threw him one last bachelor party. When I heard he was completely drunk, I dropped everything at work and rushed over. But what I saw made my blood run cold. Lena Parker was holding a cherry between her lips. The fruit slipped down into the low neckline of her dress, and Ethan, blindfolded, followed the crowd's shouts, bending down without hesitation toward her chest. When the tip of his nose brushed against her soft skin, both of them froze. Lena pushed his head away, covering her chest as she blushed and pouted. "Ugh, you guys are such bullies. I'm not playing anymore." Ethan removed his blindfold, and when he saw her shy, flustered expression, his gaze darkened. The crowd began whispering. "What's the big deal? She dropped it herself. She's usually wild, but now she's acting all pure just because Ethan's here?" Lena's eyes shimmered as she looked at him with teary innocence. "Ethan, you believe me, right? I didn't mean to." A flicker of guilt crossed his face. In a low, rough voice, he said, "That's enough. Don't make it hard for her. Let's switch to another game." Though no one was pleased, they fell silent out of respect for him. The game continued. This time, Ethan drew a slip that said, "Apply lipstick." He frowned and stayed still. Someone in the crowd jeered. "What's wrong? Just lipstick through plastic wrap used to be nothing for you. Now that you're marrying Anna Boyd, you suddenly have to behave." Another voice chimed in mockingly. "Anna Boyd's the rich princess from the capital, and Ethan's just a guy from the countryside. Of course he has to stay loyal. He's got to hold on tight to that golden ticket." Laughter filled the room, thick with mockery and contempt. Ethan pressed his lips together, silent and tense. Lena swayed over, sitting down close beside him, her full chest pressed against his arm, her heavy perfume filling the air. She spoke softly, trying to ease the tension. "You're all misunderstanding him. He's just picking someone to play with." Her gaze swept disdainfully over the hired hostesses. "Forget it. He's helped me before. This time I'll help him." She quickly pressed a layer of plastic wrap over her lips, traced them with lipstick, her face full of false bravado, and then grabbed Ethan's head, pulling him into a kiss. Ethan didn't resist. Ethan let Lena Parker take the lead, his hand gradually sliding around her waist until he pulled her close. The two of them kissed through the layer of plastic wrap, yet it burned with the same passion as if nothing were between them. Lipstick smeared along the corners of Ethan Foster's mouth, but no one seemed to care. Amid the loud cheers, I kicked the door open. The room instantly fell silent, every pair of eyes turning toward me. Ethan still hadn't extinguished the heat in his gaze. Lena went soft in his arms, leaning into him as she looked at me with blatant provocation. Ethan stiffened the moment he saw me, panic flashing clearly across his face. "Anna, what are you doing here?" he stammered. I didn't say a word. I walked straight over, yanked Lena away from him, and slapped her across the face. "You dare touch what's mine?" Lena clutched her swollen cheek, staring at me as if I were some kind of monster, her eyes full of wounded innocence. "What gives you the right to hit me?" I sneered, raising my hand again. "I need a reason to hit you now?" But before my palm could fall, Ethan grabbed my wrist in a tight grip. His brows furrowed sharply as he pulled Lena behind him protectively, his face filled with irritation. Lena was just helping me out of an awkward spot, he said angrily. You can't treat her like that. I wrenched my hand free and looked at him coldly. Ethan Foster, our wedding is tomorrow. Is this how you treat me? A flicker of guilt crossed his face and he opened his mouth to explain. But as the mocking eyes around us focused on him, the words caught in his throat. His expression hardened, turning distant and contemptuous. Anna Boyd, he said sharply, you're just a spoiled rich girl playing games. You've done worse than this yourself. I've let it slide out of respect, but don't blow things out of proportion. His words struck like thunder on a clear day, shattering my heart into pieces. So that was what he thought of me all along, a woman without dignity. The love I had believed in, the promise of a lifetime, turned out to be nothing more than my own foolish dream. Just minutes ago, I had still been defending him, convincing myself that he was drunk, that he had mistaken her for me, that Lena Parker had taken advantage of him while he wasn't in his right mind. But looking into his eyes now, so full of disgust, I realized how naive I had been. Naive enough to believe that I could find true love in a man like him. Ethan Foster was a man who had clawed his way up from poverty, while I was a wealthy heiress, born at the top of the golden tower of high society. I had long grown numb to the so-called gentlemen of the elite. Refined on the surface, rotten within, so I no longer believed in love. But when I was ready to accept an arranged marriage for the sake of my family, Ethan appeared. He made me believe again. I brought him into the world of the elite, opened doors for him, gave him opportunities, resources, everything. I thought he was a pure white lotus blooming out of the mud, untainted, honest, sincere. But I was wrong. There's no such thing as a cat that doesn't steal a bite. And the face of a poor man who suddenly gains power is the ugliest thing of all. The man who once cornered me against the wall, kissing me with such restraint and tenderness, now stood tall above me, looking down with the condescension of a man who thought himself superior. My eyes burned red with anger, my whole body trembling, my voice shaking with disbelief and rage. You said I'm overreacting? A kiss through plastic wrap doesn't count, right? Then if I ever catch you cheating in bed, you'll say it doesn't count because you used a condom, won't you? The crowd erupted in laughter. Ethan's face darkened like the bottom of a pot. Lena Parker stepped forward and slipped her hand into mine, pretending to be gentle. Anna, I know you have strong control issues, but Ethan and I are just friends. It was just a game. Don't be so petty. I yanked my hand back and glanced at the red mark still visible on her cheek, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Where do pests like you even crawl out from? You cling like a piece of gum on a shoe. Should I even things out and give you another slap on the other side? Lena's face flushed from red to pale, her voice trembling pitifully. I know Ethan and I both came from small towns. You're the rich heiress. She spoke between sobs, tears streaming down her face as if they cost her nothing. You've always looked down on me, Lena Parker said, her voice trembling as she turned toward Ethan Foster with tearful eyes. Ethan, I'm leaving. I won't attend your wedding tomorrow. I wish you happiness. Women who play the weak and fragile always know how to pull at a man's heartstrings. Ethan immediately reached out to stop her, his eyes filled with anger as he glared at me. Anna Boyd, Lena is my friend. I invited her here tonight. When you insult her, it's no different from insulting me. You're being unreasonable. Maybe this wedding doesn't need to happen at all. Let's postpone it. Lena shook her head frantically, tugging at his arm. No, Ethan, please don't. Don't ruin your relationship because of me. Ethan gently patted the back of her hand, his voice soft but steady. Lena, this has nothing to do with you. I've long been tired of Anna's possessive, controlling ways. I've built my own place in this world. No one has the right to bully my friends. I staggered backward, my heart plunging into an icy river that numbed my entire body. For the past 5 years, I had poured everything into Ethan's future. I'd endured gossip, mockery, and family pressure, paving the way for his rise in society. And now, in his eyes, I was nothing but a domineering, overbearing woman. Did he really think that without my silent support, a man from a poor background like his could ever have set foot in the upper class? Without me, Ethan Foster would be nothing. Yet all my effort over those 5 years suddenly felt worthless. My eyes burned, my throat tightened as if stuffed with a wet sponge, and the sting in my nose brought tears that I struggled to hold back. My voice came out hoarse and trembling. "Ethan Foster, do you even hear what you're saying?" He didn't even glance my way. His entire focus was on Lena Parker, his gaze filled with guilt and pity. "I'll say this one more time," he warned coldly. "If you keep causing a scene, the wedding is off." A flicker of triumph flashed through Lena's eyes, but she continued her performance, pretending to struggle in his arms while pleading pitifully. "No, Ethan, you can't postpone it. If you do, Anna will never forgive me. I'll go back home right now." Ethan only pulled her closer, as if they were the real lovers, while I was nothing more than the intruder trying to come between them. As the two of them continued their little drama, Lena suddenly bumped into me. Caught off guard, I stumbled backward and hit the sharp corner of a cabinet. Pain shot through my back, leaving me frozen in place. I frowned and drew a deep breath to steady myself, but before I could react, Lena dropped to her knees in front of me with a loud thud. "Miss Boyd, I was wrong," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I'll never show up in front of Ethan again. Please, stop sending people to break into my house in the middle of the night. I'm terrified." Her face was pale as paper, her terrified eyes staring at me as though I were some kind of murderer. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with fury and disbelief. "You're the one who's been threatening her? You sent people to her house?" Lena shrank against him, clutching at his shirt as she shook her head in a show of restraint. "Ethan, don't fight with Anna because of me. She's the Boyd family heiress. Once she's done with you, you won't be able to protect me anymore. I'm scared." Seeing her trembling like a wounded bird, Ethan's expression turned pitch black, his whole body tense like a volcano about to erupt. He pulled Lena Parker to her feet and wrapped his arms tightly around her, then looked at me coldly, his voice full of warning. "Lena's just a fragile girl. She's nothing like you. She's gentle, kind, and easily hurt. As long as I'm here, I won't let anyone bully her." With just a few words, the two of them had already passed judgment on me, without giving me even the slightest chance to defend myself. So all those nights he said he was working late, he had actually gone to her place. I lifted my head and stared straight into Ethan Foster's eyes. My tone wasn't a question, it was a statement. His expression froze for a moment before shifting into something calm and self-righteous. "Lena's my close friend," he said evenly. "She was in trouble, of course I had to be there for her. And if it weren't for you, she wouldn't have had to go through such frightening things in the first place." I looked at the man standing before me, the same man who always wore that polite, decent mask, and suddenly he felt like a stranger. So this was it. I had never truly known who Ethan Foster was. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd seen, was only what he wanted me to see. Once upon a time, Ethan had been strong and unyielding, a man who refused to bow to power. He had loved me with such attention, such tenderness. But once he gained power and status, he turned out to be no different from every other man out there, deceitful, hypocritical, and disgusting in the same way. Men, they're all the same. And if that's the case, then my groom didn't need to be him. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh, releasing the tight grip I'd kept on my trembling hands. A long, heavy breath escaped me, as if I were finally freeing myself from the suffocating weight pressing on my chest. "Got it," I said softly. "Have fun tonight. Don't be late to the wedding tomorrow." I turned to leave without a shred of hesitation. For a second, Ethan seemed relieved, thinking I had given in. But the look on my face must have bothered him, because he quickly stepped forward, blocking my way with an outstretched arm, his voice cold and commanding. "If you know you were wrong," he said sharply, "then kneel down and apologize to Lena properly. That's the right way to show remorse." I raised an eyebrow and looked at Lena Parker, who was standing there with a faint, victorious smile. Then I glanced at the circle of onlookers gawking at the scene. "And what about you all?" I asked icily. "Do you also think I should kneel and apologize?" The room went dead quiet. Everyone avoided my eyes, exchanging uneasy looks, none daring to speak. Finally, one man hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over. He slung an arm over Ethan's shoulder with a nervous chuckle. "Come on, man, it's the 21st century. Who makes someone kneel anymore? She's not a servant. Lena's face, this woman who had literally dropped to her knees before me earlier, flushed from red to green to pale white in a single breath. The man awkwardly turned to me. Miss Boyd, why don't you stay a bit? Have a drink with us. He was trying to please me, his tone overly polite. I shook my head about to refuse, but Ethan spoke before I could. Sit down, he ordered. Have a few drinks with them. I froze, staring up at him in disbelief. Had I heard that right? Did he really just tell me to sit there and pour drinks, as if I were some bar hostess? The man who had invited me quickly caught on to my expression and panicked, waving his hands in alarm. No, of course not. We wouldn't dare, Mr. Foster. You've got a big day tomorrow. Best to wrap things up early. You should take Miss Boyd home. But Ethan brushed him off, shaking the man's hand away. Lena's had too much to drink, he said flatly, already turning to pull Lena Parker toward the door. I'll take her home. You can call yourself a ride. He was worried Lena might have her door knocked on again in the middle of the night. Worried she might be unsafe if she went home drunk. But he wasn't at all worried about leaving me, his legal soon-to-be wife, alone in a noisy, chaotic bar. After Ethan walked out, the room went utterly still. The crowd exchanged awkward glances, guilt flickering across their faces, but none of them dared say a word. After all, gossip about the Boyd heiress wasn't something just anyone could afford to spread. The same man who had stepped in earlier scratched his head and, gathering his courage, walked toward me. Miss Boyd, he said tentatively, would you like me to drive you home? I waved him off and said plainly, the West City project is yours. The room erupted in gasps. The man's eyes widened, then he immediately bowed his head in gratitude. Thank you, Miss Boyd. Please just call me Tom Chen. It's just, that project has always been handled by Mr. Foster. He's about to marry you. I'm afraid he might. Don't worry, I cut in, my voice cool and steady. Tomorrow, the groom will be someone else. The words dropped like a bomb. The entire room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. After a stunned pause, Tom swallowed hard, then dared to ask in a trembling voice, would we have the honor of knowing who the new groom will be? I pressed my lips together, forcing a calm smile. Toby Nguyen. The entire room drew in a sharp breath. Tom Chen jumped in immediately, as if he'd been waiting for his cue. You and Mr. Nguyen are a perfect match. Honestly, Miss Boyd, you and Ethan Foster never fit. Giving up Mr. Nguyen back then, what a waste of time. Toby shot him a cold glance, just one look, but it was enough. Tom instantly realized he'd spoken out of turn, slapped a hand over his mouth, and took a few quick steps back. Tomorrow, I said evenly, all of you remember to attend the wedding on time. And don't forget to bring Ethan Foster and Lena Parker along. At that, everyone's faces lit up with excitement, like a crowd that had just been promised front-row seats to a drama. They nodded eagerly, one after another. None of them had ever truly wanted to get close to Ethan anyway. They only tolerated him because of me. Ethan liked to think of himself as a business genius, but time and again, reality hit him square in the face, and his so-called friends couldn't wait to see how it would look tomorrow. Satisfied, I nodded and left the room. As I walked out, I dialed Toby Nguyen's number. The phone barely rang once before he picked up. Well, his deep, slightly hoarse voice came through, heavy with the smell of whiskey and a touch of irony. The bride-to-be actually has time to call the man she dumped? You must be free tonight. His tone was teasing, but beneath it, I heard the faint ache of someone who'd been hurt once too deeply. Are you free tomorrow? I asked. Marry me. There was a stunned silence. Then Toby's voice rose, laced with disbelief and excitement. You're serious? All right then. Whoever backs out is a coward. I hung up and drove straight to my parents' house. Some things had been left to fester for too long. It was time to end them. By the time Ethan Foster woke up, his head pounding from a hangover, Lena Parker was still asleep beside him. Their wedding was set to begin in 30 minutes. When Ethan saw the time, he bolted upright, pushing Lena's arm off his waist as he scrambled out of bed to get dressed. Ethan, Lena mumbled sleepily, rubbing her eyes and stretching lazily. Why are you up so early? His brows drew together so tightly they could have crushed a fly. Why didn't my alarm go off? He muttered in frustration, fumbling to button his shirt, getting the buttons wrong in his panic. The ceremony starts soon. I'm going to be late. A flicker of guilt flashed across Lena's eyes, but she quickly masked it with a sigh, getting up to put on her dress. Honestly, Anna Boyd is too much. She could have at least sent someone to wake you. A strange unease rose in Ethan's chest, a feeling he couldn't quite name. But before he could think it through, his phone rang. Relief washed over his face. Of course it was me. The smile that spread across his lips was full of confidence. He was certain I couldn't live without him, but when he looked at the screen, the name wasn't mine. His smile froze and faded instantly. He answered with clear irritation, tugging on his pants. I'm busy. Don't bother me unless it's important. The person on the other end was Tom Chen. But even as Ethan barked at him, Tom remained polite, though a trace of disdain flickered in his eyes. Mr. Foster, it's almost time. Miss Boyd asked me to make sure I pick you up right on schedule. Ethan exhaled in relief, brushing off that gnawing anxiety. Of course, I was just nervous about delays. That's why I sent someone to fetch him. Feeling smug again, he slowed his movements, straightening his collar as he said casually, "What's the rush? I'm the groom. The wedding can't start without me. Anna wouldn't dare begin without waiting for me." On the other end, Tom smirked quietly to himself, but kept his tone deferential. "Of course, sir, but Miss Boyd is still the heiress of the Boyd Corporation. The guests today are all major figures. It'd be best not to make her wait, just for appearance's sake. Maybe cut her some slack today?" Ethan thought for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. I'll be down in a minute." "Oh, by the way, Mr. Foster," Tom added smoothly, "where does Miss Parker live? I'll swing by to pick her up too." Ethan frowned in confusion. "Anna doesn't like Lena. Why would you bring her along?" Tom chuckled, his voice dripping with meaning. "Precisely because she doesn't like her, Mr. Foster. Sometimes, it's better to make things clear, to let her see it for herself, even after the wedding." "That doesn't mean I'm bowing down to her," Ethan Foster replied with a cold snort. Hearing that, Toby Nguyen's brows relaxed, and he burst out laughing, loud and hearty. "You're right," Ethan said smugly. "No need to bother coming to get me. Lena's with me. We'll head down together." Tom Chen froze, shocked that Ethan could be so shameless, openly flaunting his affair on his wedding day. "Mr. Foster, you and Miss Parker," Ethan scoffed, full of disdain. "What's so surprising? Anna Boyd gets to play around, but I can't? Or do you think I'm beneath her?" Tom forced a nervous laugh, hiding the disgust twisting in his gut. Of course not. Of course not. You're incredible, Mr. Foster. Even Miss Boyd couldn't resist you. You're perfect with anyone. You're honestly my idol." He kept up the flattery, his tone smooth and respectful, though in his mind he was already cursing Ethan's 6 ways to Sunday. Anna Boyd can do as she pleases because she's earned that right. But you? You're nothing. Let's see what kind of face you'll have left after today, when the whole city's seen what a joke you are. Satisfied with the praise, Ethan draped an arm around Lena Parker's shoulders and strutted downstairs, arrogance radiating from every step. They got into the car and drove toward the ceremony venue. When they arrived at the tall, ornate gates now closed, the sound of the master of ceremonies echoed from inside. "Thank you all for joining us today. Now please welcome the groom to the stage." Ethan adjusted his suit jacket, straightened his tie, and confidently pushed open the doors. The hall was dark, except for the brightly lit stage at the far end, where a tall, refined man stood beneath the spotlight. His presence commanded the room, his elegance shining even brighter under the lights. When Ethan recognized Toby Nguyen, he froze, thinking for a moment that he'd walked into the wrong place. He was about to turn and leave when Toby's deep, steady voice echoed across the room, filled with quiet joy. "Thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate the wedding of me and Anna Boyd." The words hit Ethan like a thunderclap, nailing his feet to the floor. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. By the time Toby finished his short speech, Ethan had finally grasped the truth. The groom had been replaced. "Now, please welcome the bride to the stage," the MC announced. The voice snapped Ethan back to reality. He looked up just as I appeared at the end of the aisle, walking slowly toward the stage in a custom-designed wedding gown. A gentle smile curved my lips, serene and radiant under the lights. A deafening roar filled Ethan's head, like the ground itself had split open. The world spun around him, every thought scattering. Just last night, I had been sitting beside him, talking about our future. planning a trip to see the Northern Lights together. And now, just one night later, I was standing there as Toby Nguyen's wife. That should have been me, he thought desperately. I'm supposed to be the groom. Now, please exchange the rings, the MC continued. At the very moment Toby was about to slip the ring onto my finger, Ethan finally snapped. Stop, he shouted. I turned my head, meeting his panicked gaze. But before he could say another word, Toby swiftly slid the ring onto my left hand. I arched a brow at him, and he leaned in close, his voice low and teasing against my ear. Once the ring's on, there's no backing out. I pinched his side lightly, whispering back, And what kind of woman do you think I am? He smirked. Weren't you the one who called off the engagement back then? I sighed, speechless, and chose to ignore his jab. Turning back toward Ethan, I faced him head-on. Ethan's legs felt like they were made of lead as he stumbled forward, his jaw tight with fury. Anna, what the hell is this? What are you trying to pull? He demanded, his voice trembling with rage. His face had gone dark as coal. His hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles cracked, the veins on his forehead standing out vividly. Before I could answer, Toby stepped forward, pulling me gently behind him. His voice was calm, but each word cut sharp as steel. It's exactly what you're seeing, Ethan Foster. I know you still like Anna, Toby Nguyen said evenly, his voice calm but edged with warning. But today is my wedding with her. If you came here to offer congratulations, you're welcome to stay. If not, don't blame me for being impolite. Ethan Foster's chest heaved, his breath ragged and furious. His bloodshot eyes locked onto Toby, seething. What the hell are you talking about? Today is my wedding with Anna Boyd. Toby's expression didn't change. Seems you're still drunk, Mr. Foster. You must be dreaming. The guests around them turned to look, their faces full of confusion and intrigue. Toby tilted his head slightly, voice calm but cold. Is there anyone here who even knows who this man is? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Then Tom Chen, sitting near the bar, raised his glass and added mockingly, Exactly. Where did this toad crawl in from, thinking he could marry a swan? Guess he's so broke he's gone insane. Ha ha ha. That set everyone off. The room burst into laughter and jeers, people shouting for Ethan to get out. A few security guards stepped forward to escort him away, but Ethan violently shoved their hands off. Don't touch me. Do you have any idea who I am? He barked. You think you can lay a hand on Ethan Foster? Just then, Lena Parker came rushing in from outside, throwing herself in front of him like a mother hen shielding her chick. The female guards hesitated, reluctant to use force on a woman, so they stepped back. Lena smiled triumphantly, turning to wrap her arms tightly around Ethan's waist, her eyes brimming with desperate affection. Ethan, she murmured weakly, Anna doesn't love you anymore, but I do. I told you she was just playing with you, but you wouldn't believe me. And now look, she's bored and tossed you aside for someone richer. Stop thinking about her. Come with me. I'm the one who truly loves you. But Ethan didn't even seem to hear her. He peeled her fingers off one by one, his eyes locked firmly on me. Anna, he said hoarsely, I don't believe anyone else. I only believe you. Tell me, what's going on? I gave Toby a small nudge in the back, signaling that I could handle it. Then I stepped forward to face Ethan directly, my voice calm and clear. It's very simple, I said. I'm marrying Toby Nguyen. Whatever was between us is over. Ethan's pupils contracted sharply, his whole body going rigid before he let out a bitter, broken laugh. Over? So that's it? He rasped. All this time, you were just playing with me? Anna Boyd, you think just because you're some rich heiress, you can toy with people's feelings like this? What am I to you? The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some gasped, others whispered behind their hands. I could feel their stares, curious, judgmental, greedy for scandal. After all, everyone in the upper circle knew that I had once defied my family to lower myself for Ethan, the man from nowhere. And now I had turned around and married Toby Nguyen. To them, I must have looked like the worst kind of woman. Two-timing, ruthless, climbing higher by stepping on the man I'd cast aside. I knew how fast rumors spread in our world. If I didn't handle this carefully, it wouldn't just tarnish my own reputation, it could damage the entire Boyd Corporation. But I stood my ground, my expression cool and composed, ignoring the judgmental glances. I clapped my hands lightly. At once, the giant LED screen behind us flickered to life. But instead of romantic photos of Toby and me, the screen exploded with images. Videos of Ethan Foster and Lena Parker, naked and entangled in bed. The sounds, the movements, every shameful detail played in front of hundreds of guests. The room erupted into chaos. Some people covered their faces, pretending to be shocked, while others peeked through their fingers, eyes gleaming with fascination. The air buzzed with gossip and excitement. Standing high on the stage, I looked down at Ethan, my tone casual, almost conversational. "Ethan Foster," I said lightly, "today was supposed to be our wedding. Yet last night, you were in bed with Lena Parker. And now you want to ask me what happened?" Lena's face turned ghostly pale as she stared at the screen. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, trembling. Ethan's own face drained of color, his jaw clenched so hard that the muscles in his face twitched. Still, he struggled to speak, his voice shaking but defiant. This isn't what it looks like. It's not like that." Ethan Foster shouted, his voice cracking. "Anna, Lena, and I raised a hand and smiled faintly, cutting him off. "I know," I said. "There was a condom between you two, so it doesn't count as sleeping together, right?" The entire hall erupted into laughter. Mocking voices echoed everywhere, sharp and merciless, every word slicing into Ethan's pride like a blade. His eyes darted away, his throat dry as he swallowed hard again and again, wanting to defend himself but unable to form a single word. Lena Parker, as if jolted awake from a dream, crawled forward and clung desperately to his leg, sobbing. "Ethan, it's all out in the open now. Anna's marrying someone else. Let her go. You're a rising star in business now. You have so many opportunities, so much power. Why keep clinging to her? She's terrifying. She spies on you behind your back. If you marry her, you'll never live a day free from her control. Come with me instead. I'm the one who truly loves you." A flicker of hesitation crossed Ethan's eyes. He lifted his head, looking at me with a mix of hope and pleading. "Anna," he said, his voice trembling, "I know you've been looking forward to this wedding. I don't care about your past, I really don't. I believe in my own ability. Whatever Toby Nguyen can give you, I can too. If you don't like Lena, I'll cut her off completely. Please, don't be angry anymore, okay?" I took a single step forward, and under the light of his desperate hope, I slapped him, hard. The force stung my hand, leaving it numb, but the sharp sound echoed through the room. A cold smile touched my lips. "Ethan Foster," I said evenly, "don't mistake a gentleman's heart for your own petty schemes. I don't need your forgiveness, but if you dare spread any more lies, I won't hesitate to sue you for defamation." The diamond ring on my finger left a long, bloody gash across his cheek. Blood welled up instantly, bright and furious. The hope in Ethan's eyes shattered in that moment, twisting into raw hatred. "You always have to be above me, don't you?" he spat, his voice shaking with rage. "Always pointing fingers, always trying to control everything. But don't forget, Anna Boyd, I made it here by myself. You think you'll always be above me? That I'll never catch up?" He wiped the blood from his face, rubbing it between his fingers as his expression turned dark and venomous. His voice dropped to a chilling low. "I'll give you one chance to come back to me. If you don't blame me for what happens next." He gave a cold, harsh laugh, his eyes flicking between me and Toby Nguyen, full of malice, then turned to leave. I glanced at the bodyguard stationed nearby and gave a small signal. They immediately rushed forward, tackling Ethan to the ground. "What the hell are you doing? Get off me," he roared, thrashing wildly as his face was pressed against the floor, his features twisted in fury. Lena Parker stumbled to her feet, her hair disheveled, her face red with anger. "Anna Boyd," she screamed. "Who the hell do you think you are to stop us from leaving? You think just because you're in City A, you can do whatever you want? Let Ethan go right now, or I'll call the cops. I'll call the press too. Let's see how your fancy family deals with that kind of scandal." Just then, my father, Mr. Boyd, approached calmly and handed me a folder. "Here, sweetheart," he said quietly. "This is what you'll need." I took the folder, flipped it open for a quick glance, then tossed it straight into Ethan and Lena's faces. "Go ahead," I said coolly. "Call the cops. Let's see who they arrest first." The moment Ethan's eyes landed on the documents inside, his pupils constricted sharply. Beads of cold sweat broke out across his forehead, soaking through his shirt. He stared at me, pale as death, trembling. How did you know? When did you find out?" Looking at his pitiful state, I couldn't help but remember the night before, how I'd worried that the stress of managing his first major project might be too much for him, and how I'd quietly planned to help him from behind the scenes, thinking I was easing his burden. When I first discovered the project funds had gone missing, my instinctive reaction was to ask my parents for money to cover the loss for him. When I later heard he'd been drinking heavily, I even thought he was upset over that same issue. I had planned to wait until he sobered up before telling him I'd fixed everything, just to ease his mind. Now that I think about it, how ridiculous. That money had already been spent by Ethan Foster, who used it to please Lena Parker. And I, in my pathetic loyalty, had been trying to find excuses to protect him. It was precisely because I knew that some existed that night at the bar that I was so sure Ethan wouldn't dare postpone the wedding. Every word he said back then had been nothing more than a desperate attempt to assert his so-called masculinity, to hurt me just to prove his worth. How pathetic. Lena didn't understand the technical language in the documents, but the look on Ethan's face said enough. She panicked, snatching the folder from the ground. Her eyes darted across the page, and then she froze. Verified embezzlement of company funds, 8,000 yuan. The large, bold letters glared up at her like fire, draining all color from her face. Her lips trembled uncontrollably. I crossed my arms, my tone cold as ice. Did you really think that little hometown of yours and Ethan's just suddenly got rich for no reason? He'd barely entered the business world when he started bragging about how he'd finally made it big back home. In truth, he embezzled $8 million from the Boyd Corporation's construction project funds to make everyone proud. That $8 million is enough to keep him rotting in prison for the rest of his life. I turned my gaze toward Lena Parker, who was shaking like a leaf, despite the designer clothes hanging off her body. You love him so much, don't you? You've been living in City A on his dime, every outfit, every meal, every luxury paid for by him. If you really love him, then go ahead and pay his debt for him. That way, he won't have to go to prison. Lena staggered backward, staring at Ethan as if he were a deadly virus. $8 million? I didn't know it was his company's money. What's that got to do with me? So what if he loved you? I liked him too, so what? But not anymore, I'm done, I'm never seeing him again. She spun around and bolted for the exit, ignoring Ethan's desperate shouts behind her. Tom Chen immediately followed, not wanting to miss the drama. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, then glared after Lena's retreating figure, his voice hoarse and wild. "Lena! Lena!" he shouted, his throat raw. She stumbled but didn't stop, running as if the devil himself were chasing her, falling, crawling, scrambling away. Ethan turned back to me, his eyes bloodshot, tears and snot streaking down his face. "Anna, I was wrong. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I don't expect you to take me back. Just please, for the sake of what we had, give me a way out. Let me fix this, please." I shrugged lightly, watching him without pity. "It's not up to me to forgive or condemn you. You don't even have to go to jail. If you can repay the $8 million, you can start over." A spark of hope lit up his face. He lifted his head eagerly. "I knew it. You still love me, don't you? Anna, help me pay it off. I swear I'll never let you down again." I couldn't help but laugh. My heel brushed his shoulder lightly as I lifted my hand, showing off the 10-carat diamond ring sparkling on my finger. "Ethan Foster, today is my wedding day. I haven't even gotten your wedding gift yet, and you already have the nerve to ask me for a loan?" Toby Nguyen stepped forward, knelt gracefully, and wiped my shoe with his handkerchief, muttering in annoyance, "Don't touch filth like that, you'll get yourself dirty." Then he wrapped an arm around my waist and led me out of the hall. Behind us, Ethan Foster screamed my name, thrashing violently against the guards who held him down, but he couldn't break free. His voice cracked with despair as he turned to the crowd, begging each guest for help, swearing on his life that he'd pay them back tenfold if they helped him escape this time. But the only thing he received in return was laughter. Cold, derisive laughter. "Honestly," one man sneered, "if it weren't for Miss Boyd's connections, I wouldn't even have bothered to look at him all these years." "Exactly," another scoffed. "She's been cleaning up his messes from day one. Now he finally gets what he deserves." He still thought of himself as some kind of business genius, so confident it was laughable. I couldn't understand what went through his head. That was Anna Boyd, for God's sake, the sole heir to the Boyd Corporation. Whoever married her would never have to worry about money or status for the rest of their life. And yet, the night before his wedding, he'd gone off to sleep with that woman. Just look at her, completely unworthy of even standing next to him. Honestly, they deserved each other, a perfect pair of disgrace. Someone in the crowd added with a scoff, and let's be real, Toby Nguyen isn't exactly a small name himself. Now that the Nguyen and Boyd families are connected, all of City A basically belongs to them. The whispers, the ridicule, the pity, they slice through the air like 1,000 knives, stabbing into Ethan Foster's mind. The last of his nerves, stretched to the breaking point, finally snapped. So it turned out every ounce of power and prestige he'd enjoyed had come from me, because I'd been behind him, protecting and supporting him. And he, in his arrogance, had thrown it all away with his own 2 hands. His face turned ghostly pale, and a wave of blood rushed up his throat. With a choked sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed on the floor. The security guards scrambled to lift him and carry him out toward the hospital. As for me, under Toby Nguyen's steady arm, I officially became the daughter-in-law of the Nguyen family. The next morning, I woke up exhausted, my whole body sore. Toby had already prepared breakfast and was sitting by the bed, watching me sleep with a quiet smile. Flustered, I reached out to push his face away, but he caught my hand, kissed it softly, and stayed silent for a while before finally speaking. Something happened to Ethan Foster. I blinked, startled, and looked up at him in disbelief. Toby sat down beside me, pulling me gently into his arms as he began to explain. Apparently, after being taken to the hospital last night, Ethan had been admitted, by coincidence, to the same facility where Lena Parker was being treated. When Lena fled the wedding venue, she twisted her ankle in her panic. Tom Chen, who'd been obsessing over her for months, had taken the chance to bring her to the hospital. When Ethan woke up on the hospital bed, groggy and weak, the first thing he saw was Lena and Tom in a compromising position. Close, intimate, whispering to each other. The sight pushed him over the edge. He thought about how he'd ended up here, how everything had crumbled, and how Lena, who'd dragged him into this mess, was now comfortably seducing someone else. Rage filled his veins. If it hadn't been for that fateful meeting years ago, when he'd run into Lena working in the city, he would never have started showing off, never left me, never thrown his future away. Now, faced with the ruin of his life, while the woman who'd destroyed it laughed freely, he completely lost control. No one knew where he found the strength. But Ethan suddenly lunged from the bed, his hands clamping around Lena's throat. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice guttural as he roared, "Go to hell, you liar! Go to hell!" Lena struggled violently, her face turning blue, her eyes rolling back as she clawed at his arms. In desperation, she reached out toward Tom Chen, clutching at his pants leg for help. But Tom, terrified of being implicated, shoved her off and bolted out of the room without a word. Doctors rushed in and managed to sedate Ethan before he killed her. He was arrested on the spot, later charged with attempted murder and embezzlement, and sentenced to death. As for Lena Parker, when she regained consciousness, she had completely lost her mind. She screamed and cried at the sight of any man, trembling in terror, and was eventually committed to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Hearing all this, I exhaled softly. Toby tightened his arms around me, his voice low with concern. "Ethan's gotten his punishment. Anna, do you still need me?" I laughed lightly and playfully hit his chest. "I need breakfast. If you keep talking, it's going to turn into lunch." Toby grinned from ear to ear, then suddenly tackled me back onto the bed, his voice hoarse against my ear. "Then maybe we should just turn it into dinner instead." After our wedding, Toby and I began a new life together, not just as husband and wife, but as partners. We worked side by side to build our future, one founded on mutual respect and understanding. Toby never tried to control me or use me to further his ambitions. Instead, he stayed by my side, listening, supporting, and truly seeing me. And together, he faced every challenge life threw our way. We managed the major projects between the Boyd Corporation and the Nguyen Group, transforming our marriage into a true partnership, one built on growth, trust, and mutual respect. It wasn't just about love, it was about two people standing side by side, building something greater together. Meanwhile, the story of Ethan Foster and Lena Parker became the talk of the upper class for a while. A cautionary tale whispered behind champagne glasses at banquets and business parties, before eventually fading into silence, forgotten like yesterday's scandal. I stopped caring about them entirely. My life now was full, busy, yes, but meaningful. Every day I worked alongside a man who valued me, who saw my worth not as a possession but as a partner. Sometimes when I look back on the past, there was no regret left in me. If not for those painful experiences, I would never have truly recognized my own value, nor found Toby Nguyen, the man who was genuinely worthy of my love and trust. Life, I realized, sometimes needs to break you first, to shatter the illusions you cling to, before showing you what's real, what's worth holding on to.